Hey guys, welcome to Excelopedia. In today's video, we're going to learn about the aggregate function in Excel. In the last video, we had discussed the subtotal function, and we had also looked at how the subtotal feature in Excel works. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go watch that video. I'll leave the link in the description. I'm sure you'll learn something new there. So what I was trying to say is that the aggregate function works very similar to how the subtotal function works. In a sense, a lot of the things that it does, the subtotal function does, aggregate also does. But at the same time, the aggregate function is, it has so much more you can do with it. And we'll discuss all of it in detail today. All right. So without wasting any more time, let's quickly get on to the video. So if you look at the screen, you have some very simple data here. We have some names in this column, right? And we know what state they belong to. We know their gender, and we know their contribution. We know how much they donated. Now, here you can see we have this grand total row, and we want to know how much is the total donation we received, right? The total amount. So for that, all I have to do is come here, select this cell, then I want to write the sum formula is equals to SUM sum, bracket open, and I want to select all of these donation amounts. Yep. Once I've made sure that everything is selected, I just need to close the bracket and press enter. You can see the total donation we received was 14,695. This could be dollars, pounds, rupees, it's whatever. Now, I want this data to be sorted alphabetically. You can see we have the filters activated here. If you don't know how this is done, I can, I'll show you how this is done. I'm going to make sure that I've clicked somewhere in the data. Then I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-L. The filters are now deactivated. If I press Ctrl-Shift-L once again, the filters will get activated again. All right. And we have another video where we discussed filters in detail. If you've not seen that video, please go watch that video. Again, the link is there in the description. I'm sure you'll be surprised with what all you can do with filters. So again, I'm going to come here. I'm going to use this drop-down box that we normally use to filter data. Here you also have the option to sort the data, right? So the first few things you can see here, this is about sorting the data. And I want the names to be sorted alphabetically from A to Z. So I'm going to click on this and look at what happened. Since we also had grand total here, it got mixed up with the names, and this is not going to work because you can see the grand total is also not calculated properly, right? I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo whatever we did. Okay, we're back to where we were. We have our grand total calculated here. I'm going to delete this, all right? And we're going to use another formula, like we said, the aggregate formula to find the grand total. So for that, I have to simply start with this equals to sign, aggregate, all right? I'm going to open the bracket. And you can see the first argument is function number. So you have exactly like in subtotals, you have a number of different things you can do with this. In fact, there are 19 different operations you can do with this one formula, right? You can find the average, you can count the number of donations you receive, you can figure out what's the maximum donation, the minimum donation, and so on and so forth. So there's so much you can do with it, right? And if I move it around so that we can see it properly, you can see there are two different syntax for this formula. What is the syntax? It's basically the way you write the formula, right? So there are two different methods, so to say, in which you can write this formula, and we'll discuss both of them. All right. Okay. So like I said, we have these different options, and I'm going to select sum. So to do that, you can see every formula, every method has a different number to it. I can see that 9 is the number for sum. So I can either enter 9 here, or what I can do is I can use my arrow key and come down to sum and press the tab key to get that number there, right? Or I can, simply move my mouse and come here and double click on sum. These are three different ways, just like we did in subtotals. These three different ways help you in selecting the function number, right? So I have my function number here. I'm going to press the comma. And the next option you have here is you can ignore a few things. So for example, you see the first option is ignore nested subtotal and aggregate functions. So let's say I'm going to press escape to come out of this. Okay. And I'm going to come here and apply subtotals. Okay. I'm talking about the subtotal feature. Again, if you don't know what I'm doing, you can go back and watch that video. You'll understand exactly what I'm doing. I click on OK now. You see my data is now subtotaled, right? If I have to use the aggregate function now, and I don't want these totals included in my function, in my calculation, I just want to know the total donation I received, but I don't want these to be included, I can do that. I can just come here and write is equals to aggregate, bracket open, and I'm going to enter 9 because we already know 9 is a number for sum, comma. And you can see the first option you have here is ignore nested, subtotal, and aggregate. So that is what I want to do. I'm going to select that. I can either, because you can see this is highlighted, so I can now press the tab key to select that. I want to enter comma. Now it's asking array or reference. So in essence, these two are the same thing, because array, like I always say, whenever you see array in your formula, Excel is expecting you to select more than one cell, maybe a list of cells, right? Reference 1, reference 2 is also basically the same thing. It's, this is another way of saying select multiple cells, or if you just want to select one cell, reference 1 would be just selecting one cell. And, if you enter comma, reference 2 would be selecting another cell, and then reference 3 will be selecting another cell, right? So this is one way of selecting cells, and obviously you can see how difficult it is. This only works when your cells are not adjacent, when your cells are not together, like one value is here and one value is somewhere else, like that. Now we can see all our values that we want to aggregate are together. So I don't really want to do this. I can simply come here and select all of these, right? And I want to close the bracket and press enter. And you can see I'm getting the exact right number, 14,695. It's not including the state totals, the state subtotals. It's only including these values. So that's how the aggregate function works. That's one way of using aggregate when you already have your data subtotaled, or if let's say we had an aggregate formula in here somewhere, it would have also skipped it because that's the option we select. If I press F2 now, you see this option that we selected. I'm going to delete this. So this option that we selected is ignore nested, subtotal, and aggregate functions. So it's not only ignoring subtotals from in here, it's also ignoring any aggregate function in here. Although we don't have any aggregate function in here, but let's say if we had, it would have ignored it. All right. Let's look at the second option. It says ignore hidden rows, nested, subtotal, and aggregate functions. So not only ignore subtotal and aggregate functions, also ignore hidden rows. All right. Let's see how this works. I want to delete this, and I'm going to use the arrow key to come down. Now this is selected. I can just press tab. All right. And I'm now going to press comma, select everything that I want to aggregate, and close brackets and press enter. Again, I'm getting the same number, but let's say if I do want to see contribution we received from Delhi, all right? So I can come here and right click and click on hide. So you see that the whole thing is gone now, and my aggregate value is also now adjusted accordingly. So it is not calculating the hidden rows anymore. It's not including those rows in the calculation anymore, right? Here we have everything because this is calculating based on the subtotal feature, but here we're using the aggregate function and it's ignoring the hidden rows because that's what we asked it to do. I'm going to unhide this. All right, let's look at the next option now. I'm going to come here, delete this. Let's write the formula again instead of editing it. I want to enter is equals to aggregate. I'm going to open the bracket. Again, I want to sum, so I'm going to enter 9, comma. And the next option I have here is ignore error values, nested, subtotal, and aggregate functions. All right. So I want to select that. I'm going to just enter 2 because that's the code for that option, comma. And I'm going to select this whole thing because this is what I want to aggregate. Close the bracket. Press enter. Again, we have the aggregated value. We have everything total for us. Now, let's say for some reason, some of these cells were not entered properly. We got some error here. So one very common error that you see is #NA. I'm going to enter this #NA error here. If I press enter now, you see that my subtotal, my aggregate formula has adjusted the calculation. It's only aggregating everything except these cells because we have error here. Now that's a very helpful feature because in many cases when you're getting data from somebody else, sometimes you're extracting data from some system many times you get error in your data. You don't want those errors to be included in your calculation. So you can use the aggregate function to ignore them. Instead of, selecting cells around that errored cell, you can simply select everything and use the aggregate function to adjust your calculation. All right. Now let's look at the next option we have. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to say is equals to aggregate bracket open. Again, 9, comma. It says ignore hidden rows, error values, nested subtotal, and aggregate. So I'm sure this is very self-explanatory. So this is basically adding one more option here. So along with ignoring error values, nested subtotals, and aggregate functions, you also get to ignore hidden rows. We have that option here, but here we didn't have the option to also ignore error values, right? So I'm going to enter 3, comma, and I'm going to select this whole thing here, bracket close, enter, and we can already see that the hash and a errored value is ignored. And if I have to, let's say, ignore these rows, I can simply come here and select these rows. And instead of coming here and right clicking and selecting hide, there's a shortcut method. What I can do is I'm going to press escape tool, and the shortcut method is select the rows you want to hide and just press Control 9. So that's a shortcut for hiding rows. The rows are now hidden, and you can see that our calculation is also adjusted accordingly. So now this function is ignoring hidden rows. It's ignoring error values. It's also ignoring any subtotal, formula in here or any aggregate formula in here. So it's doing all of that and getting this number for you. All right. I'm going to come here, select these, and I can just press Control Shift 9 to unhide the hidden rows. Okay. Now let's come here and see what else we can do with this. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to enter is equals to aggregate bracket open. Let's try and figure out the average donation we received. So I just need to enter 1 because that's the code for average, comma. The next option is ignore nothing. So obviously it's not going to ignore anything. And let's see what it does. I'm going to press 4 because that's the code for ignoring nothing, comma. And I'm going to select all of this. And if I close the bracket and press enter now, we're getting an error because we have error in here, right? Now, since we have an error here, it's not able to, find an average of these cells. So obviously that's a problem. And that's why you have the aggregate function, which helps you in working around those errors. Wait, I'm going to delete this. Let's look at the next option is equals to aggregate bracket open. Let's try and see if we can find average using the next option. I'm going to enter 1, comma, and it says ignore hidden rows. So I'm going to select 5 because that's the code for ignoring hidden rows. So what it means is that it's only going to ignore hidden rows, right? If you have an error value here, it's not going to ignore it because you're not selecting that option. So basically, when you're selecting ignore hidden rows, it's only going to do that. It's not going to, ignore error values or nested sum and aggregate functions and all that. It's only going to ignore hidden rows, right? So I'm going to enter comma and I'm going to select all of these again. And if I close the bracket now and press enter, we are again getting this error here because we have these error cells. So if I come here and if I press Control 9, my error value is gone from here. But since I have an error here also, I can come here and press Control 9. And you can see I'm getting an average now, average of all of this, including the subtotals. Because you can see that the actual donation amounts we received was never more than 1,000. But you can see the average is more than 1,000, which is because it's also including these subtotal values. And since we did not ask it to ignore those subtotal values, it's including everything from here. And only ignoring the error values because we hit those rows, right? So I want to do Control Z once again. Okay, now we have everything in front of us. Let's look at what next we can do with it. Delete this is equals to aggregate bracket open. Let's stick with 9 for now, comma. Okay, the next option is ignore error values. So I'm going to enter 6, comma, and I want to select this whole thing. So now it's going to ignore the error values. but it's not going to ignore the subtotal values or the aggregate values. I'm going to close this and press enter. You can see that the sum of all these numbers, including the subtotal numbers, is 22,135, which is obviously an incorrect value. It's not going to make any sense because you're basically counting everything twice. But this is something you can do with the aggregate function. You never know. It's somewhere it might make sense. So for those cases, you have the option here. You can just ignore just the error values and not ignore subtotals or aggregates. I want to delete this. Let's look at what else we can do. Is equals to aggregate bracket open. Again, I'm sticking with 9 because that's easier for me to explain. Comma. Next option, the final option we have here is ignore hidden rows and error values. So again, the same thing. I'm going to select 7, comma, select all of these. Now it's going to ignore these errors, and it's also going to ignore any hidden rows. Bracket close, enter. It's adding up everything and excluding these error values. And let's say if I again have to hide everything from Karnataka, so I'm going to select all of these and press Control 9. And so this is the total value, excluding error values and the data from Karnataka, right? Again, I can come here and select these two cells because the rows in between are hidden. I can press Control Shift 9 to unhide those rows. And let's see what else we can do here. I want to delete this. Is equals to aggregate bracket open. Now, when we started discussing aggregate, I said there are two different syntaxes, syntax 1 and syntax 2, and we'll discuss both the syntaxes. All this while, we've been actually working with this first syntax, and we were ignoring the last argument here because, if you've been watching my videos, you would know that anytime an argument is enclosed in square brackets, you basically can ignore it. It's an optional argument. So that's why we were not using this so far. Let's see how this additional argument works and how it helps us. So basically it works in case you're looking for a large or small value. So we have that option here, large and small. If you don't know how large and small works, we have a separate video for that. I've discussed everything in detail. Please make sure that you watch that video. So the code for large is 14. I'm going to enter that, large, right? Comma. And I say I don't want hidden rows, error values, nested subtotals, and aggregate functions, everything to be ignored. So I've come here, I'm going to press tab, right? Comma. I'm going to select all of these, selected all of these, right? And instead of closing the bracket now, I'm going to enter comma again. And you can see it's now asking for K. K is basically position. Since we're looking for the largest value in this data, K would basically tell Excel the position in the data that you're looking for. What do I mean by that? Well, you could be looking for the first largest value, or maybe the second largest value, or the 10th largest value, right? So this K would help you telling Excel which position you're looking for. Now, let's say I want the 8th largest value, or let's start with 2. Let's say I want to figure out the second largest value. I'm going to enter 2 here. I'm going to close the bracket now. If I press enter, 895 is the second largest value. So if you look at just the donation amounts, the actual donation amounts here, you see, let's see. All right, look at this. We have 935. 935 is the largest donation amount. And the second largest donation amount is 895. There's nothing in between 895 and 935. So this is the second largest donation amount we received. Similarly, if we want to identify the, let's say, 5th largest amount, I'm going to press F2 here. Now I'm in the edit mode. I can delete this and I'm going to enter 5 and close bracket and press enter. Excel is now going to tell me the 5th largest value in this data. If I press enter now, 875 is the 5th largest value. So the largest value is 935, and then you have 895, and I think then you have 890, right? This is the 3rd largest. 4th largest would be, let's see, 4th largest is 890 again, right? And the 5th largest is 875, all right? So I hope you understand what I'm saying. If you have any doubts, please go watch that video where I explain large and small. You will get a better understanding of what we're discussing here. Similarly, we can also identify the smallest value. So if I delete this and let's work out the smallest value here is equals to aggregate bracket open. I want to select small. So come down here using your arrow key. Small is 15. I can just press tab, comma, ignore everything. I don't want anything to be included. So 3, comma, I'm going to select all of these, comma. Let's say I want to find the second smallest value here. So the number 2, bracket close and enter. 545 is the second smallest amount. First smallest amount is 515, and then the second smallest is 545. The third smallest will also be 545 because there's another person who's donated exactly the same amount. All right, so that's how basically positions work. Again, watch that video to get better understanding on this. So this is how the two syntaxes for aggregate works. Is equals to aggregate. Let me just shift it around. Let me just shift it so you get a better view, right? So the first syntax is you enter the method you want to apply. Now, whether you want to find an average or you want to count the number of instances or you want to get a sum of the whole thing or whatever you want to do. So that's the first argument. The second argument is options. You know, you want to hide something, you want to ignore something, you do that from here. And then you select array. So either you can select the whole thing, or if your data is in bits and pieces, something here, something here, something here, you can use this. So you don't really have to come here and use anything. It will automatically select the syntax for you. That's the beauty of it, right? So if I just want to select some random cells from here, like this and this and this, it will automatically go to this syntax. You don't really have to do anything about it, okay? And the final option you have here is select the position. What's the position you're looking for? This is only in case if you're looking for the large or small values in your data. All right. So that's how the aggregate function works. Like I said, it's very similar to the subtotal function, but in many cases it's very different because you get so many different things you can do with it, and you can ignore values, ignore rows, so on and so forth, which you cannot with the subtotal function. Yeah, you can actually ignore the filters with subtotal, but you cannot ignore hidden rows, or you cannot ignore, let's say, error values and things like that. All right. So that's how the aggregate function works. I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something new today. If you like this video, like I always say, please like the video. Please leave a comment so that I understand what you like about the video. I'm asking for your feedback. Like, tell me what you like about these videos and what you don't like about these videos so that I could improve on my videos. I really hope that you're learning something new with every new video. If there is a specific topic you want me to make a video on, please let me know through the comment section. I will be reading all your comments, and I'll try my best to make videos that you want. All right. Once again, thank you so much. You have a great day ahead. Take care. God bless.